Headline news most affecting Abbotsford this week. New rules for sextortion. They're about to be put in place in our province. Expect Abbotsford Transit to shut down this weekend. Abbotsford MP Ed Fast speaking out over amendments when it comes to assisted suicide. And Abbotsford teams are going to go big in basketball. Josh will have more in sports. In the director's chair this week is Liam Gilchrist-Blackwood, our work experience student from UFE. All right, Abbotsford, let's get started. To better protect people from the harmful effects of having their intimate images shared without their consent and improve access for justice for survivors of sexualized violence, the province is now introducing the Intimate Images Protection Act. This includes giving young people more legal avenues if they become the victim of sextortion and need to have images removed from the web. Carol Todd was a major force behind this. Her daughter Amanda died from suicide 10 years ago after she was exposed on the web by a man in Europe. That man was eventually extradited to Canada to face charges. After the recent two-day shutdown of transit service in the Fraser Valley, the CUPE Local 561 did reach out to First Transit. The two parties sat down for talks back on March the 2nd. That was the latest effort to reach a deal for what is being called the most underpaid transit workers in the region. That's according to CUPE. Although the two sides have agreed to meet, transit workers are still not collecting fares. The union will escalate job action if no deal is reached by the end of the month. So, what happens now? Well, there's another shutdown for all services except for HandyDart. That started today, this Thursday on March the 9th, and then again for Friday and Saturday, the 10th and the 11th. Further bargaining dates are expected to be next week. Now, worst case scenario, if a deal is not reached by March the 20th, a complete shutdown and a walkout by the drivers will happen. That will mean HandyDart services will only be available for those who need treatment for cancer, MS, or dialysis. Federal Conservatives are calling for Justin Trudeau and his Liberal government to protect vulnerable Canadians and immediately end the expansion of medically assisted death to those with mental illness, the MAID program. Abbotsford MP Ed Fast has tabled Bill C-314 to stop the Liberal government's expansion to that program, specifically Canadians with mental illness. He and fellow Conservatives have had many issues with the wording of the amendments. Spring burn season is consistent throughout the Fraser Valley, although the cost of burning permits is quite different. Now, as always, the burn season already started March the 1st. It runs until April the 30th. Traditionally, burning is to remove winter growth, the weeds, and generally clean up organic growth, although composting is encouraged. Now, here comes the tough part. For Abbotsford, a permit is $50. In Chilliwack, it's only $35. Being an organ donor is very special, and sign that card. You have heard this many a time, and there is living proof that it does save lives. Recently, Abbotsford Police Chief Mike Sir saved a life. His brother, DJ. Sir gave up 2/3 of his own liver to save his brother's life, and yes, his liver will grow back in size. From a statement from the chief, thanks to everybody for your incredible support, the awesome medical staff at Toronto General and the transplant clinic. My brother and I are doing well. He now has a new lease on life with 67% of my liver in his body. And by the way, yes, mine will grow back. Local governments are receiving a $1 billion boost through a one-time provincial fund to address the needs of growing communities. The grants will be distributed to municipalities and regional districts using a funding formula that reflects population size. It's up to the local areas to determine who gets the money. But it is impressive. The District of Kent, $2.7 million. Harrison Hot Springs, just over $1 million. The Fraser Valley Regional District, $8.8 million. Chilliwack, over $16 million. And Abbotsford, $27.4 million. Last Thursday, Abbotsford PD members jumped into the frigid waters of the pond at Albert Dick Park for a good cause. It was to raise money for Special Olympics. Now, in Abbotsford, they raised some $5,000 for Abbotsford's Special Olympics programs. Abbotsford Innovation Network is called a new and exciting idea recently launched at their first event. Abby Innovates, connecting minds, sparking ideas. From their website, they say the launch event marked the beginning of a new initiative focused on fostering innovation, creativity, and a collaboration in Abbotsford and beyond. The first keynote speaker was Dr. John Thomas. He is the director of the Esposito Family Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at UFE. Spring forward, fall back, the usual refrain when the time change hits. Now, this weekend, clocks go forward 1 hour on Sunday, 2 a.m. We're back into daylight saving time. So, yeah, we lose an hour of sleep. A little bit of history. In 2020, Yukon heard a loud cry from their population and made the call that in that year, that was the last time they would ever change the clocks. They stay permanently at daylight saving. Now, you might recall an online poll in September of 2019 by the province of BC. We said 93% of us want a permanent time change. Then Premier John Horgan made it clear, well, we want to be in time and in tune, pardon the pun, with Washington, Oregon, and California. Washington and Oregon have already committed to year-round daylight time. The majority of Californian voters support the move. Hit the brakes here. Every thought of change was stopped in 2020, as it was an election year in the United States, and only an act of Congress is the only way that those three states could get in sync. And since then, Congress has been kind of busy with other issues. It's nowhere near their bucket list. And of course, they're gearing up for another presidential election. Coming up in sports, a ton of high school basketball highlights with Josh.
How's it going, everyone? Josh here with you once again. Welcome back to sports. I don't know if you've noticed, but in this segment of the show, that's what we do here. So let's just jump into it. 3 Abbotsford high schools were seeded this week for the boys' provincial basketball tournament at the Langley Event Center. The MEI Eagles and the Abbotsford Panthers were both slotted 7th in the 3A and 4A tournaments, respectively. The WJ Mowat Hawks also qualified for the 4A tournament and have been slotted in the 11th seed. You can follow all the action through bcschoolsports.ca or, of course, at the Langley Event Center in person. So check it out. Now, here we are. Trailing by 5 with just over 7 minutes to play, the Abbotsford Senior Girls Panthers basketball team scored the next dozen points to upset the top-seeded St. Michael's University School Blue Jags 67-64 and claim the provincial title. The two teams are playing at the Langley Event Center on Saturday in the championship final of the BC School Sports 3A Girls Provincial Basketball Tournament. It was actually the second title in 3 seasons for the second seed Panthers, who also captured the top prize in 2020. Malia Lenz was on that team as a grade 9 student, and her coach and dad said that experience proved to be extremely beneficial. Quote, "You can't replace that experience," father and coach Prentice Lenz said about his daughter. Quote, "Not only to be here, but also to win in that scenario also helps to gain with maturity." Congrats to those girls. An unbelievable achievement for them. 2 times in 3 years. That's very, very impressive. So great work. The last few weeks, we've been covering the ongoing labor dispute between the Canadian women's national team and Canada Soccer. This week marked the first step in hopefully rectifying this conflict, as Canada Soccer has announced that a deal in principle has been reached with the women's national team on an interim funding agreement retroactive for 2022. The terms of the agreement mirror a similar deal that was reached with the men's national team last year that includes per-game incentives and results-based compensation. The women's team said they still haven't been paid for the 2022 season, so this deal will be very important for that. Players from the Olympic champion women's team, including Christine Sinclair, Janine Becky, and Chilliwack's Jordan Heidema, have been outspoken about pay equity and fair treatment when it comes to the resources being put into their program. Abbotsford's Summit Soccer Schools is hosting spring break skill camps on March 21st to 23rd, and registration has begun. The camps will be played at Exhibition Park for ages 10 to 17, and registration is $99 per player. For more information, Google Abbotsford Summit Soccer Schools for more info. The number 1 seed, Trinity Western Spartans, punched their ticket to the Canada West Final and the Youth Sports Championship with a very impressive straight sets win over the number 5 seeded Winnipeg Westmen last Friday night at the Langley Event Center. The Spartans will play host to the Canada West Final in Langley on Saturday, March 11th. So congrats to them. Abbotsford's Columbia Bible College Bearcats are looking for a new women's basketball head coach. After 4 years at the helm, Jessica Funk's tenure as the head coach ended with the conclusion of the 22-23 Pac West women's basketball season. CBC Athletics Director Mike Teeter said, quote, "I want to thank Jessica for her dedication to our women's basketball program. Jessica invested a great deal into the program, specifically with the student athletes that she coached," end quote. The search for a new women's basketball coach will begin immediately, so anybody who's interested should check it out. All right, that's all we've got for sports today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, Abbotsford, we will see you next week. We're now going to go to Cari with the weather.
abbyTV weekend weather with Cari Moore. So, Cari, the first weekend of daylight saving time, is it actually going to be worth it?
Thanks a lot, Don. Next week, we are going to have some rain. Highs of 9, down to 0 on Saturday, but a lot of rain. One less hour of rain because of that whole time change. But by the end of the week, we might be seeing highs back up to 9, but still around 1 or 2 with just some clouds. No sun in the forecast so far. And that's the weather, but don't quote me on it. Back to you, Don.
Thanks, Cari. If you'd like to participate in reporting news in Abbotsford and you have a story you think we should know about, you can always send us a note to news@chilltv.ca. We'd love to hear from you. That's the news this week. Reminder, clocks go ahead 1 hour for daylight saving time. Have a good weekend. I'm Don Lehn.